When you're playing a tabletop role playing games, there are going to be times when you roll badly, maybe the creatures roll very well, or maybe you just had an off day and sometimes a player character is going to die. In a lot of cases, people are aware of the stakes when they start playing and they know that these things can happen, so it might not come as a big of a shock as it might to other players. However, players have invested their time. The game master has invented time in looking at the backstory and fitting these into the campaign. And it is going to cause some issues sometimes when people are playing. People do get invested. So we should probably take a look at that. So my name is Don. I'm trying to be the Sly Strategist, and let's go ahead and get into it. Now, before we start, I'm going to throw out my own X card here. Before I hear complaints about soft players or people getting in their emotions or things along those lines. So here is kind of my view on it. There are as many different players as there are campaign themes, settings, and stakes to play. And it's just a case of finding the table that you want to play with. If you're playing with friends, look, it should be the easiest thing in the world to bring this topic up. And if you're looking to play virtually with a group of players that you might not know, then it should be in the description of the listing to avoid the problem in the first place, or perhaps one of the first things that's addressed in a session 0. Setting up the game and a good session 0 ensures that all participants, including the game master, share an alignment in terms of the style of gameplay they want to do. A fantasy setting steeped in darkness might portray death uniquely, very descriptively, or feature it frequently, while a monster capture themed role playing game for kids that you're doing at the local library could exclude death entirely. Even real life is not one dimensional, and the games we play shouldn't and don't have to be either. Let's go ahead and start with the session 0. So, experiencing the permanent death of a player character in a role playing game can evoke intense and difficult feelings from both the player and the game master. Both the player and game master have invested a lot of time, effort, and themselves to create a character and how they fit into the greater story. And even as game masters, witnessing these heroes that our players have tried to embody meet their end due to bad or, as I mentioned, good dice rolls can be pretty disheartening. Now, due to this, I would suggest talking about the topic in session 0 discussions. Personally, I'm more inclined towards having a sense of risk into the stakes in the games that I play, where the player's choices basically invoke a sequence of risk and reward scenarios. However, it's important to recognize two things. Not all campaigns have to be life or death, and not all players approach the game with a desire to be stressed each time their character faces a combat. There are campaigns that are death matches for sure, and when you are deciding what campaign to play or what type of setting you want to create, if you are homebrewing your own campaign, you should discuss with the players what kind of game they want to play. Would they like the tournament arc of it to be Celebrity Deathmatch or Karate Kid? Should the stakes of the campaign be to beat down all the opponents, or are you doing a chopped style competition with alchemists and random alchemical ingredients? Not everything needs to be an intense physical confrontation. Certain players, possibly due to various reasons, might struggle to come to terms with the passing of a character they've invested 2-3 years into. And specifically, if you are leading a game with younger players, their perspectives might differ significantly from that of adults. It's essential to select a game style that resonates with everyone, and once that consensus is reached on the desired gameplay approach, you can play the game and go all in and really invest in that particular game. It's plausible that certain players desire a fantasy adventure with minimal risk. The goal is entirely attainable. As a game master, you would possess the flexibility to adjust the game's difficulty and steer situations in a way that prevents player characters from meeting their end in what might be seen as maybe excessive way. Now, character deaths in some campaigns will happen, so leave the player satisfied with the character's death. It's definitely possible to discover an effective approach that leaves the player content with the way their character meets their end. Sometimes it just requires a little bit of effort, though, it can also be challenging sometimes and not really attainable. You can keep the character's backgrounds in mind whenever feasible, and to pay attention to the circumstances surrounding their potential demise. A player might experience a sense of pride if their character selflessly sacrifices themselves, and with just a little narrative addition, you can fashion the character's death as a tribute to the player's portrayal and demonstrate basically your regard for both the character and the player. Maybe the champion noticed that the creature was going to swing wildly and died taking a blow for the cleric, thereby doing what they believed in to their dying breath. Or maybe the rogue was attempting to set up the final blow for the fighter, thereby saving the party. Just a little narrative creativity from the game master can make a just character death possible. After the encounter is over and the players are back to a safe place with their compatriots' bodies, let them plan a funeral, have a wake, or have a big party celebrating their life. Paying attention to the character's backstory, maybe have them send something to the parents of that particular character. You should also consider what might make the most sense. A cleric of Pharasma and a fighter of Caden Kalen might want totally different things, or they might want nothing at all. And just because the character died doesn't mean you might not see that character again. There are various spells, rituals, rites, or potions that can be used to bring a character back with varying levels of time and body requirements that can be used. You can pray for intercession of their or another player's deity, maybe strike a deal with a patron for a witch or a demon for a wizard necromancer. You can use the situation to make the player make a choice and have a limited time offer kind of sitting out there, and that could add to the narrative of the situation. There's also the unnatural return to life, if it makes sense for your party and the campaign, and in some it just might not, but you could crack open the Book of the Dead and allow the player to come back as undead. Another approach could be a quest or an arc taking the party to the underworld or the first world or to a plane that might be a good fit for the character and situation. And then the last point I'd like to bring up is just because a character dies in one campaign doesn't mean the player has to tear up the character sheet and throw it away forever. That dead character can just as easily come back for one-shots, maybe as an NPC in another game, a character in someone else's campaign, or maybe it could be the conscience of one of the current players. Maybe you have that particular player character adjust their level, depend on where they are. If they wanted to come back, they have to start back at first level, or maybe they need to advance to 10th level if you haven't heard from them in 6 months. But the character does not have to be gone forever. Now, I do hope you enjoyed this video on kind of dealing with player character death. There are a lot of options. There are a lot of considerations, starting from session 0 and even the planning of the campaign all the way through to the end of the campaign. There are many different things you can do, and there are many different ways to play. Just because one particular campaign might want to play in a big deathmatch type competition and another one might want to do a cooking show. You know, they're both valid campaigns. They both could be fun. And as long as the participants enjoy it, let them enjoy it. Now, I do hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, feel free to like, subscribe, or hit that notification bell. But whatever you do, I hope you have a great day and happy adventuring. Thanks.